And I know goalies take a little while to adjust to new settings, new defensive structures. I get that. But I would think you'd want to go somewhere where you're going to, be behind a contending team, hopefully have a good season, and then sign up your last long-term deal next offseason. I think the Bruins have to somehow convey that to Linus Ullmark.
Well, I think functionally too, you just can't pay them as
no, you can't.
Right, like Swayman's going to get somewhere 7.5 to 8.5.
Yeah, I would. That's the exact number I would say, 7.5 to 8.5. And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by Prize Picks. Use that promo code CLNS to get up to $100 matched on that first deposit. And we're presented by Game Time. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky, and I am joined by Carl Corazzini. Welcome back, Carl.
It's so nice to be back with you, Evan. I have missed you since the Bruins run in the playoff ended with the Florida Panthers. But I have not heard the CLNS code in a while, so good to hear it.
Music to your ears. To your ears. If you had told me back in April, hey, on June 12th, you and Carl are going to be doing a taping or a recording, I'd be like, oh, Bruins went on an unprecedented run to the Stanley Cup Final. Not quite how it worked out. But I was at least happy we got 2 rounds this year for us to do the post game shows.
Yeah, 2 rounds, and I think when you really take a look back at it, I think performed admirably. And yeah, would you have liked them to have beaten the Panthers? But I think as the Panthers have shown through this run, they're the best team.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be hard for Edmonton to come back down 2-0 where Florida is just playing at such a high level with their systems and with their compete as well.
Florida is a fascinating case study, by the way, and just how that team is built, how they acquired those guys. Paul Maurice is fast. I mean, I know all Bruins fans hate the Panthers, and like they're an unlikable team if you're not a Panther fan. I get that. But I just think in terms of if you're another team looking to model your team around one, Panthers have an interesting roster. I mean, you think back to that year, I think it was 21-22 when they won the President's Trophy and they lost, I think, in the first round to Tampa. Remember they had Andrew Brunette as the interim head coach. They let him go, even though he'd led them to a President's Trophy. And then you had that Huberdeau, Uyghur for Tkachuk trade. I remember at the time being like, oh, Panthers got screwed on that trade. I mean, oh my God, the Flames, what a win for the Flames. And you look now and it's like, the Panthers made bold moves. And I think, we'll get into offseason moves today. And I know that Huberdeau, like Tkachuk trade was kind of a perfect storm, because Tkachuk wanted out of Calgary and really was only going to go to St. Louis or Florida. And then, Huberdeau had a year left on his deal, so it was a tradable it wasn't like Huberdeau was locked up for 8 years or anything like that. But I don't know. I think there's something there where it's like, if you they needed to shake things up, and no one thought they needed to shake things up, really. I think only they did. And it paid off because, I mean, they look like they're going to cruise to the final, or to winning the final.
Yeah, and I think why, and I'm right, it's going to be hard to say this. I think you look back at that trade at the time, and I remember thinking, oh, your DNA just changed a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, and it's hard to find someone like Matthew Tkachuk, someone that can put up 100 points, but that plays a 200-foot game, that plays physical, not afraid to mix it up. So when you have that buy-in from your top guy, probably the way Paul Maurice wants to play, everyone's got to follow. And then you have Tkachuk, you have Bennett. That's a difficult matchup for any team. Like to consistently have to play against them shift after shift, people that can put up 60 to 100 points, that's really hard to do. And they're just from the goal out, they're the best team this year in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they've hit that point. Like, again, we're recording this June 12th. So I think this is going to come out next week because I'm on vacation next week.
Good for you.
I'm, going to pre-record this. But I don't know how Edmonton gets back in it. I like, they've just been outmatched. I know the first game they outshot Florida and all that stuff, but you're right. I mean, the way Florida plays, and like so you got to face the Bennett line with Kachuk, which is just gonna punch you in the face, hit you, which people are complaining about a lot on Twitter, and I get that. Like, I am surprised the NHL is kind of just letting stuff go. Who was it? Was it Bennett? Someone choked out like Evan Bouchard in game 2, or choked out an Oiler. I saw it on Twitter. Um, and the NHL just lets it go. But like, then I see like Draisaitl hit Barkov up high, and it's like, well, it's about time a team responds to Florida like that. It's about time you go back at them and you try to injure them. As Marchand said it break during the playoffs. Like, you're trying to hurt each other. Like, but no one wants to say it. And so like last year the Golden Knights broke Matthew Tkachuk's sternum. Remember that? So like, again, I'm surprised, it's taken this long for a team to try to take out a top guy on the Panthers. It's,
But that's not good. That's not going to be the way for Edmonton to get back into the series, right?
no, it's
Yeah.
not.
They're not built that way. For Edmonton, they're going to have to win the matchups at home. They're going to have to get on the power play, and they're going to have to be successful. So that's, unfortunately for them, that's the stuff that they're going to have to walk away from. Those after the whistle scrums or anything like that. Like, they live on their power play is elite. That is what they do best in the league, and they've got to find a way to get on the power play for sure. And their penalty kill as of late had, right, like heading into this series, I mean, what did they kill? 25 of 26. Like,
Yeah.
they've been doing a good job on the special teams, and right, like, how do they find a way to get back out there on the power play?
Bruins legend Mark Stewart, by the way, runs that PK. So
I
congrats
saw
to
that
him.
the other day.
I didn't know that until they mentioned it.
It took me a while to figure out who that was. That is a large beard.
Oh my God, I know.
I will say, having played against him even just a little bit in the American, he was such a good, solid defender and scary to play against. Like, he didn't fight all that much, but you knew by his physical contact with you in the corner that he was just a strong man, and you did not want to kind of mess with him. So he carved out a nice career from being a solid defender that killed penalties, and obviously has done a great job with Edmonton's PK at this point.
I think he was traded by the Bruins during that 2011 Cup year. I think he was traded to Atlanta for Peverley, if memory serves. And I don't know. I hope he still got a ring. Like, I don't know how that works. I forget how that works. But so this offseason for the Bruins, that's what we're here for. That's what people are interested in. What are your first impressions when you look at kind of the whole board?
Yeah, so two things will stand out. Number one is you need a number one center. And I think we had talked about it during the playoffs. I like Petraglia comes back in the lineup. He probably slots in at number 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So essentially what you're trying to do, and I'm sorry for people, I'm looking at a lineup that I have constructed next to me.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine.
So I don't mind the players that you have left. As of right now, you've got 10 forwards left that could potentially play. But if you look at it with Petraglia coming back, if you go Frederick and Geeky as your third line, I don't mind that. And then you go Beecher, Brazeau, and Lauko as your fourth line. I don't mind that either. The idea that you have Coyle and Zacha as your 1 and 2 centers is probably not the way that you would like to see things played out. They are very good slotted in at second and third line. And that's why I'm saying I like your players. I like the players that you have. You have a team that's capable of certainly making it to the playoffs and winning a round. Now, if you can make them your second line left wing and your second line center or something to that nature, then I think you've got a really good team. So I think the number one thing is you need a number one center. And now my next thing would be, can you name Florida's backup goalie?
I think it's Stolarz, isn't it?
Stolarz, but maybe, right? Like,
it took a second. Yeah.
I think you need to open up some cap space. I think you need to trade Ullmark, and then you would then pick up then you would pick up a capable veteran backup that can give you the 25-ish games. Like, I don't think that
Or
you're going to go.
they might be forced to play Bussy next year because he has to go through waivers to go to Providence. I'm fine
Okay.
with that too, but I agree with you.
And so either way, whether you pick up a veteran or you go with Bussy, that's fine. But I think those are the two things that stand out, because you're going to have to figure out getting a number one center. I don't know that Ullmark in a trade gets you that. I don't know what a trade scenario for him would look like. And then the third thing is on defense, you're in pretty good shape. McAvoy, Lowry, Carlo Lindholm, Peak Wotherspoon. Right? Like, if you can upgrade Wotherspoon on that third pair, so a lefty defenseman, and Wotherspoon comes in for injuries, and like that's a good D pair. Like, you've got good players. Number one center, and then you're probably going to need a Tyler Toffoli type, and I don't mean to throw out names right now, but you're going to need a top six guy that can play up and down your lineup, whether that's first or third line. And you tried to do that last year with Van Riemsdyk, like that type of player that can give you some offense, but play in multiple situations. So I think that was a lot. You asked me just for a couple things that stand out, but
That's perfect.
I just gave you a lot, Evan. Sorry.
No, I that's what the people want. That's what people need. I agree with you on all of that. The only thing I don't disagree with, but the only thing I would add is if they have some money left over, I wouldn't hate them going out and getting a veteran left shot defenseman. I'm not saying a Brady Shea. I'm not saying like someone who's going to cost you over $4 million, but like a Brendan Dillon, a veteran left shot guy who could potentially play with McAvoy on the first pair, or down on the third pair with Andrew Peak. Because then I just think McAvoy needs a consistent partner. Like, and I think Grzelcyk was that for a while. Grzelcyk had a tough year this past year. Grzelcyk's gone, by the way. So again, like, I think if you can do that, and then, if Low Rise starts the season on the third pair and works his way up and plays great, then awesome. Dillon can move back to the third pair, and you got Low Ryan McAvoy, and you're set. That's the only thing I would add. The 1C is the biggest thing. You
Yep.
need a number one center. And I see a lot of this on Twitter. I've seen some other people mention, the 1Cs out there on the free agent market. The only real one is Elias Lindholm, and that's even a little bit debatable. He's 30, a down year this past year. Is he a true number one center? I don't, is he a franchise like Sidney Crosby type number one center? No, not at all. But he's an upgrade. And you need that now. And he's real, unless you pull some sort of trade, whether that's Linus Ullmark for a number one center or someone else we're not thinking of, because I don't know how many trade chips you have. I think that's probably your best bet is
Well,
Elias Lindholm.
that's probably the market that you're in, right? So essentially what you're looking at right now is a legitimate number two center that has to play number one. That's an upgrade.
Yes.
That's an upgrade over Charlie Coyle. Like, I think Charlie Coyle slotted in at number two. That puts you in a position to compete. If he's your number three, like he was in 22, 23, then you're a Stanley Cup contender. So it's trying to find a way to get. Essentially, you're looking to replace Bergeron and Krejci, like the minutes, the points that they gave up or that they left, that void. That's what you're trying to kind of make up for. And so the market that I think you're in is right, Lindholm. I don't think that Ullmark's going to get you a franchise number one center. He's going to get you a draft pick, potentially a first rounder, and then, if you're a Stanley Cup contending team, maybe you get that second, third line center. I don't see him getting you a true number one center.
Did you see in the Ottawa Sun, this was circulating like a week or two ago, one of the writers there mentioned that an NHL executive told him, because Ottawa wants Linus Ullmark. That's like Ottawa's been, I guess, in on Linus Ullmark. And an executive told him that a package for Ullmark from the Senators would look like Jacob Chikrin, a first-round pick, and another high pick. I was like, oh, you do that every time. Are you kidding me? That's perfect. I don't know if that's realistic, though. I think that's a high price. But again, you can never underestimate GMs being desperate when you really need a goalie. And that's why, like, I look at New Jersey as a team for Ullmark. Like, their GM Tom Fitzgerald came out and said they're open to trading the number 10 pick and they need a goalie. And it's like, there you go. Like, if it's number 10 pick for Linus Ullmark straight up, I'm cool with that. What about you?
Yeah, I think you would probably want in that scenario. So number one, talking about Ottawa, I don't know what his he has a limited no movement clause, right?
I believe so.
Places that he can and can't go to. I'm going to. Is this bad to assume that Ottawa is probably on that list?
It's probably no. I don't think that's bad. I think that's probably accurate. I can't
Okay.
imagine it's on that list, or it
Yeah,
isn't
like,
on that list.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he didn't want to go to LA, I'm assuming he's not going to Ottawa. So you're limited by the places that are not on his list. But that deal you do every day of the week, right? Like, provided the cap hit works on both ends, right? I think Chychrun makes a little bit more than Ullmark does.
I'll check that.
If it's straight up for a 10th overall pick, I'm going to have to trust in my scouting staff that they think that there's a legitimate number one center that you can, right? Like, obviously you're not going to slot that player in next year, but is that player closer to the NHL than they are farther away? If that player is farther away, and so by farther away, I mean 3-4 years down the line, then I'm probably looking for some sort of prospect with that number 10 pick. The number 10 pick is extremely valuable. There's no doubt about that. But in the immediacy of it all, you can't lose Ullmark because, right, like what the Bruins did with their tandem this year is you had an opportunity to win. That those goalies had an opportunity to steal you games every night. And I don't know much about Brandon Bussey, but what we do know is he's not at Ullmark's level. So if that player at number 10, and I know you like some players.
Well,
right?
I haven't watched those guys. I texted you a few names. I mean, that's from that Corey Proneman in The Athletic. I don't want to. I wish there were some New England prospects who were around that, aside from Cole Eiserman, because they'd be like, oh, there's a great center. I watched him all winter. But yeah, I mean, there should be some names around that number 10 pick.
So that number 10 pick, if it's 1 year, stash him back in junior, let him win a Memorial Cup or something along those lines, let him play World Junior, and then they're ready to step in and be a second line center. All right, I'm okay with that number 10 pick. If it's going to take some time, which it does with some of these young players, I want a decent prospect back too. 10 and a prospect, and I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, I totally get that. I also think with 10 though, you do get the cap. You do get the cap space. So with like Linus Ullmark gone, you get the cap space which you can go spend on a player or keep for the season to go trade for a player mid-season if you wanted to do that. So there's that. By the way, Chychrun makes 4.6. That's why he's sort of so valuable, is that his cap hit is not big.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and he's got a year. This is the last year of his deal. There's a lot more to get into with Ullmark, centers, all that stuff, the future of Jake deBrusk. But first, quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. Quick break in the action to tell you about my good friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like Meek Mill and Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. And Prize Picks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, Prize Picks will have your back and not count that as a loss. Testing my skills on Prize Picks this basketball season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. Personally, with the Celtics going on a deep playoff run, I'm liking Jason Tatum more points. And I'm liking Derek White more points too. I met him at Fenway Park earlier this year, and I just have a feeling he's always gonna go off. So, to get in on the action, Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use that code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, back to the show. How weird is it that we don't have like a live chat during this?
I'm disappointed that we don't have one. I'd really like some of our, I don't want to call them fans, but some of the commenters from Toronto that were really, they followed us through the second round, and that was really nice.
They did.
I would love to see them. Can't think of the name off the top of my head. There was one, it was like 1st and 10, or it was a football reference.
Yeah, it was. They were awesome. And you know what's funny? Like sometimes I'll go through the YouTube comments on different Bruins beats and podcasts to see what people are thinking. And on almost all of them, someone's like, "Where is Carl?
Hey,
bring back Carl." And I said, you know what? We should do that.
let's
We
go.
should do that. So we're doing that today. That's what we're doing.
Awesome.
That's what people want. That's what the people want. The Ullmark thing is fascinating because, you know, at breakup day, he was adamant about staying. I can't imagine a world, though, where his camp is not like, you know, dude, you got a year left on your deal. If you're in Boston, you're not going to play as much as Jeremy Swayman. Because even though they say they like the tandem, they're going to be paying Swayman a big chunk of change this offseason. They cannot have those guys splitting the net evenly. Swayman's proven he can play multiple games in a row and all that stuff. To me, like if I'm Ullmark, I want to go to like a Carolina or a New Jersey or a team that's a contender where I'm going to be the guy. They need a goalie. I'm wanted. You know, I think he wants to stay out east, but like even west, like Colorado is a team, LA, and you know, like those are spots I think you would want to be. And I know goalies take a little while to adjust to new settings, new defensive structures. I get that. But I would think you'd want to go somewhere where you're going to, you know, be behind a contending team, hopefully have a good season, and then sign up your last long-term deal next offseason. I think the Bruins have to somehow convey that to Linus Ullmark.
Well, I think functionally too, you just can't pay them as you.
No, you can't.
Right, like Swayman's going to get somewhere 7.5 to 8.5.
Yeah, I would. That's the exact number I would say, 7.5 to 8.5.
So you can't be paying two goalies 12.5, 13.5. I mean, you're now, as of right now, you have $10 million in cap space.
Oh, you have like almost 22 million in cap space right now.
You got 22 million in cap space. That number is obviously going to go down with what you have to pay Swayman. So I just think the Bruins have got to make a move. Obviously, that's what they're going to try to convey to Ullmark. Hey, we're going to move away from the tandem a little bit, 60-40. Like, they've got to show him that it's in his best interest to leave, right? Like, go win a cup, be the player, exactly what you're talking about, and go sign your last contract. You can't pay Jeremy Swayman $7.5 to $8.5 million and then ask him to be part of a tandem. That just
no.
You can't pay a goalie at an elite level and then say, all right, hey, you're not going to fully see the net until the playoffs come around. It just doesn't work that way. And you have never seen another team use a tandem. Now you've seen, right, like Lehner and Fleury, it kind of came to fruition there in Vegas, but they still got rid of him before they won, correct?
Yeah. Hey, the Bruins did it during the playoffs this year. They did it for 2 games.
Yeah, it
was legendary. We'll never forget it.
It's extremely rare for it to work out, in large part because some of the best goalies in the world carry a high cap hit, and so that second goalie is either a prospect or an older veteran in the Jonathan Quick there in New York. So I suspect that they're going to come around to the idea of going somewhere else. And where that somewhere else is, I don't know. Because you would have thought that LA was a really good situation for him to be in last year. And by all accounts, right? Like something that he didn't want to do.
Yeah, I think he's got a, like, I don't see a world in which he's not traded this offseason. I don't, especially around the draft. Like, I think the teams are, when teams are desperate and they're a goalie away. Now, I don't know what the rest of the goaltending market is. I mean, people are mentioning like UC Soros and other guys like that, what the cost would be to get a guy like him, would be high. But same with Ullmark. Like, so I think there are teams that need goalies and you need offense. And I think dealing Ullmark opens that option up completely. An interesting thing, back to the Elias Lindholm stuff. Lindholm to me is such a good fit for this team because he fits kind of their style. He can win draws, shut another team down, shut another team's top line down, and he can score. Again, is he going to be like 90 points every year? No, but 65, 75, maybe 80 points playing with a guy like David Pastrnak. I think that's in the cards. But there are some who want the Bruins instead, because they have so much cap space, to say, hey, you know what? The Bruins need a high-end scorer. Let's pass on Lindholm and instead go for a guy like Sam Reinhart, who will probably get around 10 million this offseason, or Jake Gensel. To me, that's an either or. I don't think you cannot have both. You cannot have Lindholm and Sam Reinhart. You've got to just pick one. Would you go for that? Would you go for don't upgrade at center or get a Chandler Stevenson type and then get a Sam Reinhart? Would you do that?
Tell me, and you know the answer to this. Tell me who Sam Reinhart's center is.
It's Alexander Barkov.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So you're talking about one of the best all-around players in the National Hockey League just happens to play in the middle for Sam Reinhart. And I don't think that, and I'm not, this obviously Sam Reinhart is a great player. He's had a great playoff run. He was a great player last year. It's taken him some time to get to this point. That being said, Alexander Barkov for the last 5 years has been one of the better all-around players in the National Hockey League. You've got to upgrade at center to make everyone else around you better. Now,
Bingo.
Does Lindholm do that at a high enough level? I don't know. Is he an upgrade over Coyle in that spot? Because I do think you slot him in probably with Zacha and Pastrnak.
Yes, I would agree.
And that becomes your first line. So I don't think just getting a winger is good enough for your team. I don't think that makes you better because you saw what Zacha and Coyle did during the playoff run where they went stretches without scoring goals or producing points. And that, again, like that's for Coyle anyways, that's not his full game. That's not the measure of what his game is. But you need someone down the middle that other teams have to prepare for. And right, you're not always in control of the points that you can create, but do they create chances enough every period to be considered a top 6 center?
Yeah, that's the thing. And I don't, you need a center. You do. You need to win draws. You need a guy who can facilitate. I know Lindholm's underlying numbers weren't great last year. I get that. I think the other thing with Lindholm is, let's say this offseason, let's just say hypothetically, they did get Hampus Lindholm at like 7 times 7.5, and they traded Linus Ullmark for the number 10 pick. Now, again, I'm going to make this sound great. Like, people are like, oh my God, Evan fixed it. What were you going to say? Yes.
Well, you said Hampus Lindholm, so I think you're talking about Elias.
Did I say Hampus?
Yeah.
They signed Hampus Lindholm to a new contract, 7 times 7.5. No, Elias Lindholm. And they trade Ullmark for the number 10 pick, and they draft, I don't know, let's say a Berkeley Caton or a Caden Lindstrom, a center at number 10. Lindholm is probably going to be your number 1 center for the next 3 years, let's just say.
Okay.
He's 30, so it's 3 years. Can fit in that role. And then you get your, hopefully, number 1 center of the future, your franchise guy you're hoping to be with that number 10 pick, who will be ready in hopefully 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
again, that's saying a lot with a prospect, but you're picking number 10, that should be in that ballpark. And so I do wonder, like, if that's kind of their route, where it's like, hey, Lindholm can be the stopgap, but let's go out and draft the next center, the next hopefully franchise guy, because you also have Matt Poitras too, who looks like a really good top 6 center when he hits his stride in the NHL. And so, like, I think, if Lindholm can be the stopgap, and you have the idea that, like, the cap is going up. If Lindholm's making 7.5 now as a number one center, that's very good. And in a couple of years as a number two center, that looks really good. 7.5 as a number two center, I think that'll probably be the standard for number two centers in 3, 4, 5 years. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the Lindholm thing. I know a lot of people aren't. A lot of people they'd rather go out and get the high end talent. I also wonder, like, with Reinhart, and I don't know his game well enough to be like, what's I know what the floor is. Like, we know what the ceiling is. He scores a ton of goals. But if you did put him with like a Coyle or a Zaka, let's just say, like, how much is the production going to dip? Is he going to be 30 goals? Is he going to be 35, 40? Like, if he's making 10 million a year, you got to be producing big if you're making $1 million less than David Pastrnak. Like, that's the one thing with Reinhart that I'm not fully sold on.
Yeah, and then what you got to look at in that scenario is his production is going to dip here in Boston, because the power play goes through Pastrnak, right?
Yep.
What a lot of how he creates on the power play in Florida is in that bumper spot, which since Bergeron left, they never really were able to create in that area for whatever reason, whether it's puck movement, whether it's whoever is down on that goal line is not able to make that pass quick enough, right? Whether they made the adjustment that, like, let's go through Pastrnak. So it doesn't matter. You immediately coming here next year, his production dips because Pastrnak is the centerpiece of the offense.
Yes.
So that's that. And then,
well, he would open up. He'd be in the bumper on the power play. That would, like, the power play would improve with him 100%. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. All right. So there's that. You're not going to separate Zaka and Pastrnak. So then that means that you're going Coyle, Marchand, and Reinhart. And here's the thing. Right now, this is from my playing experience and the type of player that I was. Like, I'm not super creative. I was fast and I could shoot the puck.
For the people who don't know, Carl played in the NHL. So this is not just like for those who didn't watch the post-game shows and are just seeing Carl for the first time, he played for the Bruins and the Blackhawks. So just let's get that out there.
Let's be honest to the fans too. Clearly not enough to not be here on a Tuesday at 10:39 a.m.
Hey, school just got out, okay? So there you go.
So what I would say is, now you slot Reinhart in with Coyle and Marchand. He's not seeing the puck as much. He's just not. And the reason for that is because Coyle's a right-handed centerman that just naturally you're going to make passes on your forehand. So Marchand's going to see more of the puck than Reinhart. And so the production then dips to that level. So is it worth it going out and getting Reinhart when you don't have the number one center? Like, if you had, I don't even know a left-handed center that is, but when's
Leon Draisaitl.
I'm trying to think, when's the last time the Bruins had a good left-handed centerman? Like a top 6 left-handed centerman?
Savard. Savard was probably the last one, right?
Perfect. If you had Mark Savard here, who is an elite passer that in that era was getting 80 points a year because he's a pass-first guy, sign me up for Reinhart all day. He's going to touch the puck. Savard's going to put him in positions to be successful, and Reinhart's going to do what he does well, which is shoot the puck. He's obviously really smart to find open spaces. That's why he's in the bumper. Sign me up. Savard and Reinhart for the next 6 years. But you're given your current center situation, I don't think if you're going to get another top 6 left winger, you're probably trying to go left winger, right winger. Sorry. If you're trying to go get one of those guys, you're looking for an all-around guy that can probably play up and down 2-3, right? Like in the second, third line, a Tyler Toffoli, like we've talked about, a 55-point guy, skates well, can play multiple positions, play on multiple lines.
30 goals.
Yeah, that's the guy you're probably you're trying to get Lindholm because that's your best bet, and you're going to go all out on that. So you're probably going to overspend for him. And then you're looking at, trying to cash in on someone that can get you 20, 30 goals down the stretch. And I have the wingers. I had the wingers up earlier, so
Well, I'll give you a second because I want to get into deBrusk. I want to get into Jake deBrusk. That was a topic you and I talked about at length many times on post-game shows. But first, quick word from our friends over at Game Time. Quick break to tell you about my good friends over at Game Time. I am very excited about the NBA playoffs, and what's awesome is here in Boston, Celtics fans make TD Garden the best atmosphere for a playoff game. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Maybe it's the NBA playoffs, or it's the MLB regular season. Once the Celtics wrap up, which hopefully ends with a championship, Fenway Park is a great place to spend a summer day or night. Going from TD Garden playoffs to chill, exciting nights at Fenway Park is one of the best times of the year. With Game Time, there's last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and there's flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And there are zone deals. Save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. So, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Now, back to the show. So Jake deBrusk.
Jake deBrusk.
Quite the topic. Jake deBrusk. Always finds his way into the conversation. Free agent, a UFA. And, had a little bit of a down year this past year. Great in the playoffs. I think was he tied for their lead, I think, in points by the end? Like, he was a top producer for them. In post-game comment or postseason comments, that Don Sweeney made, it seems like they're far apart, and they've been kind of far apart all year. And I said this to you before we started recording. It's mid-June. He's not locked up yet. July 1 is when free agency opens. Typically, guys, if you're keeping them, are locked up by now, and they're not. And he's not. And I think he's probably gone. Now I would have liked to have kept him at the right price, right? At the right price, at 5.5, 6 million, maybe 6.25. You get above 6.5 and I start to wince. But I can't pay that. I can pay 5.5 million. Personally, I could pay 5.5 million, but we get to 6.25. I can't pay that. But I just, what do you think? I mean, should they do whatever it takes to keep him, or do you think, keep, right price?
Well, I would think two things. Number one, obviously and for all the fans that used to watch us, I got to plug in my computer again.
That's fine.
But I'm in the same seat. I'm prepared this time.
I know. I love this seat. It's a perfect angle. It's great.
Yeah. I would say number one, I think the agent's obviously telling Jake deBrusk, let's wait. Let's let it at least get as close to July 1 as we possibly can. And that's for a couple of reasons. Like, obviously he had a down year, but that's what he is. He's shown that he's a 44 to 50 point guy, right? Like top.
Yeah.
He's going to be a 60 point guy. He had a good playoff run. Let's wait and see if the Bruins up their offer, which the Bruins could do. And then if they don't, then we're on the open market, and you're probably going to get from a team that's looking to be a playoff team, a Columbus, something along those lines that may.
That's an interesting one. I like that one. That's a good one.
That may overpay for him. And by overpay, I think you're in that 6.5 range. Do I think he's going to get 7? No. Do I think he might get 6 years? Possibly. I would think it's probably 5 and somewhere between 6.5. I think at 40, 50, 60 points, that's probably an appropriate level. I would like him back personally because I know what I'm getting. Like I always say that his consistency is that he's inconsistent, but he's shown you that he's going to give you that 45 to 60 range, 60 at tops, And I'm happy with that because he does multiple things. And at the end of the day, he plays left wing, he plays right wing. He has played center. He kills penalties. He plays on that power play, whether that's first or second, and that's valuable. To have someone that can do that amount of things for you, those type of players don't come around. Now you want him to be the guy that is consistently using his speed to attack the net and create chances. He's not going to be that during the regular season. He's not going to do it. And if you can live with that, I think he's a very valuable player that I would rather have. And this is why I would, and I don't know where they're at. Like if they're far apart, if the Bruins are at 5 and he's at 6.5, then there's no point, right?
Yeah, he's gone. He's gone then.
Yeah, but if you're talking about 6 and 6.5, I'm probably going to pay that 500 grand because I know what to expect from him at this point in his career, as opposed to go out and get, let's use a name, and I'm just looking at the left wings, and Anthony Duclair, whose cap hit this year was 3, puts up 42 points, plays a similar style, right? Like plays heavy at times, inconsistent, fast. That's someone that you would potentially bring in as a replacement for Jake DeBrusk, probably on the cheaper side. But do you get the same value? Does Anthony Duclair do all the things that Jake DeBrusk is capable of doing? And you're just going to make the determination is going a little bit over for Jake DeBrusk. Is that too rich for the Bruins, for lack of a better term?
I also think like signing free agent wingers can be dangerous, and bringing in new wingers in general can be dangerous because you're putting them with new centers. And you look at the Bruins history. And I know it's been a bunch of years, but you look at Matt Bolesky, David Backes, Andre Kasha, Nick Ritchie. Like they bring these guys in who were in previous roles, and it can be hard to adjust. And you look at like Bolesky was a big signing, Backes was a big signing, and Backes was older and a little bit slower, but um, you bring some of these guys in, and again, like to replace DeBrusk, it's not a Reinhardt or a Gensel, obviously, but like, is it an Anthony Mantha? Is it a Tyler Bertuzzi? Is it a Teravainen? Is it a Marcia So? Like all those guys have flaws. Marcia So would be a great fit, but he's almost 34. Tyler Bertuzzi was a great fit when he was here, but defensively he is nowhere near Jake DeBrusk. You probably will get like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 more points during the regular season than DeBrusk would on average. And maybe you take that, but still, like, has holes. Anthony Mantha has holes, like Teravainen, like all these guys do. So in the DeBrusk thing, you know what he's going to give you. You know what the floor is. The floor is fairly high. But in terms of other names, and one name I didn't mention was Tyler Toffoli, who I also like. 30 goals, 50, 60 points. He, to me, seems like the obvious one because you need guys who can put the puck in the back of the net. He can. Who are you looking at? Is it Tyler Bertuzzi? Like, are they bringing him back? What do you want to have happen?
Right. So I think really you've got to go all in on Lindholm, and then you've got to kind of figure out the winger situation later. I think having that number one center will then dictate who you go out and look at. And I brought up Duclair's name for a reason. I think you look at his cap hit. I think you look at the pace that he plays with. I think you look at his physicality, but then more importantly, and the Bruins, I think you look at the cap hit, what he was at last year, which was right around that $3 million.
It was $3 million exactly.
Yeah, right. Like and so why I bring him up too is so you get Lindholm, that so you would probably put him with Zacha and
Pastrnak. I would
think. So then, yeah, and then I guess so one would be Duclair. He's a left winger. If I'm looking on the right side, I'm looking at a Toffoli, right? Like cap hit was 4.25 last year. That's something probably the Bruins could do. He's 32. He probably got 2-3 years left there. I don't know that I want to go I don't know that I want to go Marsh, so I think that that's going to be too rich at the age of 33
I
uh,
know.
for the Bruins to kind of. I think he's probably going to, right? Like if we're talking about deBrusk potentially going to get 6.5, Marsh is probably looking at that. He's probably going to want 7.5 for 3. Right? Like I don't think.
I would think. I mean, he's done enough. Like he's done enough to warrant that for sure.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get the term that deBrusk gets, but he'll certainly get the number. So I think you're looking for me. I think you're looking Toffoli. I think you're looking Duclair. That's probably where I'm at right now, because you're looking at someone, and what the Bruins have done, they're not too dissimilar to the Patriots in the sense that, does this player that we're going to bring in, can they do and play in multiple roles? And maybe that's my bias. Maybe that's me thinking New England Patriots. If I'm going to sign someone, they got to do a little bit of everything. And those are the two players that probably stick out to me most. That they can
I
do.
like those.
They can
I
do
like
a little
Duclair
bit
and
of everything.
Toffoli. Yeah. Now here's another alternative, right? And Conor Ryan has mentioned this to me a bunch. When you're really good, Charlie Coyle would be like your number 3 center.
Yeah.
Exploits matchups, all that stuff. Is there a world in which you do Lindholm, Zacha, Coyle down the middle, Marchand and Pastrnak on Lindholm's left and right, so you have sort of like a super line, like Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak back in the day, and then for Zacha's wings, you get those guys in free agency, whether it's a Bertuzzi and a Duclair, or a Bertuzzi and a Toffoli, or a Toffoli and a Duclair. You could go that route too. And then suddenly your third line is Frederick Coyle Geeky. And suddenly your third line's huge and dominant. And that second line is offensive. Yes.
Where does Matt Poitras go then?
Well, that's an interesting point. You could put Poitras on the wing. You could put Poitras down the middle and move Zacha to the left if Poitras is advanced enough. Or Poitras starts the year in Providence, which is kind of a popular thing that people are talking about now. I don't know where he's at. No one's seen him play in forever. We'll see what he's like in training camp, but I think Providence is also an option. So that's the thing. Whereas, if he kicks ass though in training camp and he's great in the preseason again, and it's like, all right, this guy's got to be here, then maybe he does fit on the right wing in that case. Or you could try him down the middle with Zacha on the wing. So there's that too. But because I think Marchand playing with Lindholm would unlock his offense, would unlock Marchand's offense more than playing with Coyle. So I think you also have to consider that with the lines.
And what was the super line? It was Lindholm, Marchand,
Pastrnak,
and then you went Coyle.
Well, I went Zacha as the 2 center, and then you'd have to get guys
there.
Duclair and Toffoli, let's just say, and then
and
on
so
the third line,
Coyle,
it would be
Frederick Geeky.
Yeah, and suddenly you're a much deeper team.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I think that Coyle's a better number 2 center than Zacha is.
That's fair.
And now whatever, maybe you could go Coyle, Duclair, and Toffoli. I guess one question I have too, and this is a Mark Diver question, is what's Fabian Lysell? Is he just out? Do you give him a chance here at some point? Or is he not the prospect that you thought? Or are there just too many holes to his game where you're saying, because at some point you look at the successful teams, right? Like they've got a system, like a farm system that has been able to supplement the lineup. And outside of, you got Lowry and Beecher, right? Like that have come in and kind of made an impact in Poitras, Swayman. So, you've done a nice job, but who's that next guy that is a potential to push for a roster spot? And if not him, what are you doing with him in year 3?
It's valid. I think this is the year Lysell's got to come up, and they've got to see what they've got out of him. He's got to have a good training camp, and he's got to, do you necessarily carve out a lineup spot just for him? I guess if he earns it, yeah. That's the thing. If he has an amazing training camp, it's like, all right, maybe we put him on the right side of the third line, or maybe we slot him in on the second line. Diver, I had him on recently, was not high on Lysell being able to do
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing with Diver, and I trust him on that. Um, I was kind of doing the math. Like, let's say you gave, let's just say in my situation where you want Lindholm, Zaka, Coyle down the middle. If you gave Lindholm 7.5, you gave Bertuzzi 6, and you gave Anthony Duclair 4, that comes to, I think, 17 and a half. And then you add 7.5 for Swayman. Let's just say Swayman 7.5, and it gets to 25 million. Now, that's over what they have in cap space now. But if they trade Ullmark, that's under, because you get to around like 27 and a half or 27 million. So you'd still have like 2 million in cap space with that, which is a good wiggle room to go into the season with. I'm okay with that. Like, you sacrifice getting a left shot defenseman, but I'm okay with that because you just bolstered your offense. You added Lindholm, you added Bertuzzi, you added Duclair, you became deeper. I'm okay with that.
You're
And
deeper
then
at 4. You're deeper at 4. So you just added 3 players to a 10-man group. So you got 13. You only have 6 defensemen then, which leaves you with who's coming up from Providence.
for what, D?
Yeah, who's going to be that 7th guy that plays, like, is up all year with Boston, plays in every whatever 4th game, 5th game, or when there's an injury? Like, who's that player? Right? Like, as you saw last year, and I was panicked. Right? This is admittedly, as a Boston Bruins fan, what the heck are you going to do? You just lost 2 great players, and you essentially went out to, and no one's going to know this reference. You went to, maybe they will if you're in Boston, Filene's basement.
Yeah, I get that reference.
And you started picking around in the bins for, stuff like that. That's
There
what
used
the
to be a
Bruins.
Filene's basement in Framingham, right?
Yeah, right near Papagino's.
Right next to
Yeah,
Papagito's. I remember that. Yes, across from the
yeah,
post office. Those were the days.
those were the
Uh,
days.
and that weird Burger King up on like a hill that
Yeah,
you can't get to.
that's where I lost my first tooth.
Oh, really? At
Yeah,
Burger King? There you
yeah, that
go.
one, that
There
very
you
one.
go.
Yep.
Um,
So I just think the Bruins have shown you that they're going to try to get, and Don Sweeney's done a nice job. I think he always has, and I think that's probably what's frustrating with the Jake deBrusk situation for him, is that they've done a great job in large part getting players to take discounts to stay in Boston, and you're probably not getting this out of deBrusk, right? Because he took that $2.8 million deal. So
yeah.
he can't get him to take another discount, and now you've got to figure out a way to replace him and then a center. I don't foresee them going 3 players in free agency. What I see them doing would be that center and then one other player, one other winger, and
I think
so that they can get a depth defenseman and potentially a depth goaltender if Bussy's not what they think is
I
capable of
agree
doing.
with you. I think that's what they do. I don't think they do what I just said about like Lindholm, Bertuzzi, Duclair, or Lindholm, Toffoli, Duclair. Like, I think that's an awesome way to bolster your offense, which is what they need. I
Yeah.
don't think they do that. They're not. I don't think they're programmed to do that. I think they're more programmed to go out, get a Lindholm, um, get one winger, and then get some depth guys. Or Sweeney's done this in the past. Make a trade we don't see coming.
Yeah.
Find a way to get a guy with a high ceiling who hasn't really hit it yet. So again, I don't know, and maybe you use Ullmark to do that. Maybe you don't get back in the draft, but I think you do need to, because you just mentioned it with Providence, right? Like, Low Rise up, Patra's up, Swayman's up, Beecher's up, Lauko's up. Like, who's the next guy after Lysell? There's not a heck of a lot of guys down there. I mean, could a Riley Duran or a Mark McLaughlin or a Trevor Kuntar, crack a 4th line spot down the
Yeah.
road? Yeah, for sure. But full-time NHLers who are going to make an impact every night, I don't know if they have that down there. And that's where, like, you like, it would help to get a nice infusion of a high-end prospect into that system, and you'd get that in the first round. Like, I was just looking at the Athletics. They did like a staff picks for the first round, and they have that Caden Lindstrom, the center. They have him going 4th overall. So that's
Okay.
a center. And I think I saw Pronman compare him to what's his name? Chris Kreider. They have TJ Ginla going 9th to Calgary. And then they have Berkeley Caton, who Pronman compared to Logan Cooley, going 12th. So, like, I think at that spot at 10, you're getting a good center. You're
Okay.
getting a really good center. They have Yzerman going 13th to Minnesota. What a shame we never got to see Cole Yzerman play prep hockey. Would have been cool to see Cole Yzerman play around here for like a year or two, but alas.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you have that speed, that shot. It would have been he would have done really well, I'm sure. Like he's done everywhere else in his career.
I wonder what it's funny. I might see him at an event later this week, and I want to ask him, like, were there any prep schools you considered? Because it is fun to think of, like, would he have put up like 40 goals in a, but again, he would have been young. He would have been like a freshman or a sophomore. So, like, is a freshman putting up 35, 40 goals in prep? Probably not, but
he probably has it as a sophomore, right?
Probably.
He probably has 40 goals as a sophomore. I think right away you are highlighting him on a power play. Someone like him is going to a school that has got established talent in and around him. So,
like if he ended up at like a Dexter or something,
Yeah, like in a Newburyport would be a long ride. So
yeah,
your Govs, Brooks, Pingree, right? Like Phillips Exeter. And now if he bored, then he can kind of go wherever he wants. But he would be, my guess is he would have picked a school with established talent. He plays on a top line, top power play. And in that first year, he probably has 50, 60 points. And then that next year, he probably has 40 plus goals. And you're just like,
yeah,
how in the world do we stop you?
Yeah, he would have been nasty in prep, but he instead he lit it up at Shattuck. So, good for him. I hope he goes early. But yeah, I feel like we've touched on everything today. I don't think we've missed anything. We went almost an hour. I told you initially 30 minutes. We cruise through all this stuff, which is fun.
There's only one thing you missed.
What was it?
And that would be like, do you drop a bomb and then do you trade one of your core pieces? That'd be it.
Oh my God, we're gonna go another hour.
Yeah, so that's a topic for a different day.
We can save it, but by core pieces you mean one of Pastrnak, McAvoy, or Swayman, correct?
Something like that, yeah. Or even like a Marchand, like he's 36. Like what do you potentially get for someone like that?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think I was saying last offseason, if you weren't going to make Marchand captain, what would be the point of keeping him around? Because that's humiliating for a guy who's been on the team that long to not get captain. He'd be worth something. His contract's palatable. But now I think he's a Bruin for life. And I don't think they're not inclined to make those big seismic core shifting trades. And I don't think you have to. I think with the three we mentioned of Swayman, Pastrnak, and McAvoy, you're not trading Pastrnak because he's a 50-goal scorer, and you needed one of those for like 30 years. McAvoy is a legitimate top 10 defenseman in the NHL. I think can be a top 5 guy and plays the way you kind of need a top defenseman to play. Swayman's an interesting one because, like, you could make everyone's like, oh, the Bruins got to go get Brady Tkachuk. The Bruins got to go get Brady Tkachuk because Felger's been saying it nonstop. I don't know. Ottawa's not trading Brady Tkachuk. He's their captain. He's a hot commodity. Why would they ever trade him? But if you were to make a trade for that, like Swayman would have to be a centerpiece in that. I mean, I guess there is a case if you wanted to trade Swayman, you could, re-sign Ullmark, keep him for a few years, bring Bussy up, hope that he hits. Maybe you can get away with that, but I don't know, man. You seem to have something in Swayman, and you don't trade those guys away. So.
Hey, that's the only thing we missed. It's something we can come back to. That's it.
We can come back to that. Anyways, Carl, always a fun time with you. We'll have to have you back on during the summer at some point again.
Have me on whenever. I appreciate the time.
Of course. Have a good summer, by the way. I'm sure I'll see you at rinks and things like that. But yeah, that's been this week's Bruins Beat. We're presented by Prize Picks and Game Time. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.